Hello, for my food presentation, I did pierogies, and my name is Chase Strickland. With the history and cultural effects as the beginning part, pierogies are actually filled dumplings, which are widely known as an Eastern European dish. Some of the regions where pierogies are very popular are Poland, Ukraine, Germany, and many other Slavic countries. What makes them so popular is that there can be many different ingredients and different types of pierogies that can be made. And they actually originated in Poland in the 13th century, and it was believed that Hyacinthe of Poland, who was a monk of the Kiev monastery, was the patron saint of pierogi. The first written pierogi recipe comes from the Compendium for Sklerm, published in 1682 from the renowned cook Stanislaw Stronecki. No potatoes at this time in 1682. There was no potatoes for filling, so instead they used chopped kidneys, veal fat, greens, and nutmeg. Now, for the nutrient composition of pierogies, it really depends on the type of pierogies you used, but I used sauerkraut filling for these pierogies. And for a normal serving size of four pierogies, the calories is about 260, the fat is 7 grams, the carbohydrates is 41 grams, the protein is 7 grams, the sodium is 290 grams, cholesterol is 5 milligrams, and the pierogies are actually a great source for calcium and iron. There's actually no known relationship to diseases, but pierogies are rich in iron, which help build collagen, which is a vital component of the bones. They're also a good source of carbohydrates because they're made out of potatoes and dough. And also with the protein in the pierogies, they help kind of boost your ability to heal body tissues. Now for the sauerkraut pierogies I made, the main ingredients were potatoes, sauerkraut, which is basically cabbage, seasonings of salt and pepper, margarine, water, flour, onions, and slices of American cheese. Like I said, this can depend based on the type of pierogies you're making, but I focus on sauerkraut potatoes, sauerkraut pierogies, so these are my ingredients. Now, for the agriculture, the pierogies can really be made all year round, but I guess at times, depending on the weather, because of potatoes and cabbage, when it's really snowy and there's a lot of frost, these can't grow. So normally you can find them all year round, and cabbage and potatoes you can find like anywhere at like Publix, Walmart, Kroger. So it's really common to find them and use them and really access them for your dish. Now, for preparation, there's really three main parts: the filling, the dough, and the stove. Now, for the filling, you really just get around 8 to 9 large potatoes and 1 to 2 cans of chopped sauerkraut, and you drain the cans well. You boil the potatoes in a large pot until tender. You drain it, and then you put it in a bowl with cheese slices and seasoning of salt and pepper. Then you mix your cheese potato mixture with an electric mixer until potatoes aren't too chunky and the mixture is well combined. Then you put aside a third of the mixture of the sauerkraut and allow it to cool. Then you will hand mix the sauerkraut potato mixture. Next part is the dough. This is where you add 2 sticks of margarine to the hot/warm water and let it melt most of the way and add flour to it. Then you mix with the dough mixer. It will kind of be gooey, but then you pour the mixture into a very heavy floured surface and you start kneading the dough. Then you will have to add more flour to get to a consistency that is still a bit sticky, but not too much. And then you use an extra large ravioli maker as the form for the pierogi. You can use the large round cutter and then fill and fold over it. You can also kind of use a fork to like build the corners and make the dough stick together as the sides. Now for the stove, you make sure if you're using a ravioli cutter to keep it floured along the rolling surface. And then once your filling is cool, you can begin to roll out your dough. Then you have to cut off a portion of the dough about the size of a fist, and this will be the top of the pierogi. Then you roll out to size a bit bigger than your ravioli cutter. Then you use the ravioli cutter to place your dough on the cutter. You should have some hang off and place about a rounded ball of filling in the forms. And then you roll out another fist of dough. This will go on top of the filling. It should also be big enough to overhang on the form. Once in place, you use your rolling pin, roll out the form, and then you place in boiling water for 7 minutes, and then you dip it in the butter/onion mixture on the stove, and then you place on a cookie sheet to cool, and voila, you have yourself sauerkraut pierogies. The pierogies actually tasted pretty soft and have a tender middle. There's a little crunch to it that comes from the onions that are on the outer part of the dough. After taking a bite, I first kind of tasted a lot of the butter that surprised my taste buds and a piece of cabbage that helped make up the inside of the dough. But overall, I really liked it because they kind of overall taste like a ravioli, but filled with potatoes, sauerkraut, and cheese. This is a picture of them. I've always grown up eating mashed potatoes, and this is what I felt was like kind of the same reason. But I didn't realize that pierogies were such a staple dish in the Eastern European countries. And this actually is my reference sheet. I'm sorry I had to cut this short. I only had a 5-minute timer on my